Next we've got Husqvarna YTH200 hydrospastic drive. Got Briggs and Stratton 20 horsepower intek, due for its winter service. Went to go and collect it, and the owner said that it doesn't start. It tries to start but doesn't start. So I've got it on the operating table. The battery was dead flat, so we put a jumper on it, and it would just turn over. It wouldn't do anything else. It wouldn't even attempt to fire up. So, processes of elimination. Spark plug tester. Pick these up for a couple of quid at health frauds or online. And all you simply do is take spark plug HT cap off, put that on, and put that end into the HT lead. And then when you turn it over, the little bulb in there will start flashing because there's a current going through it. I'd recommend doing that rather than taking the spark plug out, balancing it on the engine. Only because that, you can kill a coil by doing that on these single cylinder engines or V-twin engines. Yeah, much safer way of doing it. But we've got two sparks, both sides of the cylinder, so that's the sparkles in it at full. The next thing to do, knowing that we've got spark, is put a sort of dribble of Easy Start in the air cleaner, and she fired up but didn't continue to run, so we know the spark has run, fire up nicely. So the next thing would be fuel. Now on these late engines, somewhere in the fuel, in the carb, right there on this one, is a fuel solenoid. So when you pass current through it, and that's the solenoid opening and shutting. So that's allowing the fuel to come to circulate, run, go up the main jet. So if that wasn't clicking, it means that the fuel solenoid's broken, as often they do. They are quite expensive to replace. 9 times out of 10, all you do is just got to pull the plunger out of them or cut the top of them off, put them back in, bypassing the solenoid, allowing the fuel to circulate. So that's working. The next thing would be is if the fuel pump's working. The plastic ones aren't the greatest ones in the world. They're not that expensive to replace. They work on engine pulse. So as the piston comes up, it creates a pulse of air which draws in the fuel, pushing it into the carb. The easiest way to check that is just by taking the fuel pipe off, turning the engine over and letting it fire the fuel out, which it does nicely. So we've got fuel pumping, we've got spark, we've got fuel solenoid that's open, so we've got fuel in the carb. It should run. These engines only need those factors: fuel, air and a spark. But it still didn't run, so there has to be something wrong. So I pulled the inlet pipe off and just put a little bit of compressed air down into it, because there's a needle valve at the bottom of this which shuts off the fuel, so if it doesn't need any more in the carb bowl. Sometimes there's a little rubber point on them and they do get stuck. So just a very quick way, you can just shoot a little bit of compressed air down there. 9 times out of 10 it'll unstick it. Bob's your uncle. So we did that and it still didn't run. It still turns over, it still cranks. It will run on Easy Start, but it won't run on its own fuel. And when I had pulled this pipe off, there was some water some fuel that fell on the table, and unlike petrol, it didn't dissolve properly. It just conjugated, congealed, and just stayed there. So I pumped a little bit into a pot. I don't know if you can see that, quite make that out at the bottom. Looks like frog spawn. That is actually water. Water, I guess, is being dense, then fuel sits at the bottom. Hence why it wouldn't run. So, took the fuel solenoid out. This is a 13mm nut on this one, spanner. Pulled that off, drained it out. Load of water in the bottom of the carb. Drained the tank out fully. And there's fuel in there. Took the fuel filter off. And that is full of grass. So unfortunately we've had to drain the whole tank out, wash it out with some neat petrol, blow it all out, blow all the fuel lines out, blew the carb out, put it all back together, and you wouldn't believe, but it just starts up on the first crank. Easy. So yeah, process of elimination, we found water in the fuel. And that's about it. So now we can finish off doing the service. Fresh oil, fresh fuel filter, fresh air filter, new battery, sharpen her up, polish her up, get it out, job done.